Daniel Hayes ripped the rear door open, caught the wrist reaching into the back seat, and folded the man over the trunk of the town car before Sophia Whitmore finished her sentence. 3 seconds. No shout. No warning. Just a quiet driver in a cheap gray jacket pinning a stranger against the metal like he'd done it 1,000 times. Sophia had spent 4 months treating this man as furniture. Now she couldn't stop staring at his hands. And here's what she wouldn't sleep on for weeks before he ran. One of them said Daniel's name, and it wasn't Hayes. Tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Subscribe and stay with me because this one goes places you won't expect. Sophia Whitmore had a rule about people, and the rule was simple. Everyone wants something, and the only question worth asking is what. At 34, she ran Whitmore Dynamics out of 40 floors on Lexington Avenue, and she'd earned every inch of it the hard way, the kind of hard that leaves marks nobody can see. Her father had built a machine parts company in Ohio and lost it to a partner he trusted, and she'd watched him go from a man who whistled in the driveway to a man who sat in the dark with the television off. He died at 58. The autopsy said heart. Sophia knew better. Betrayal killed him. It just took 11 years to finish the job. So she didn't trust. She verified. She built a company where every contract had teeth and every handshake had a paper trail, and she slept about 5 hours a night, and she told herself that was a fair trade. Her assistant Grace Okafor had worked with her for 6 years and still knocked before entering. New driver starts today. Grace said that Monday morning walking beside her toward the elevator bank. HR ran him, clean. What happened to Ellis? Retired, his knees, fine. Sophia didn't look up from her tablet. Does he talk? Does who talk? The new one. The last 3 talked. One of them tried to tell me about his fantasy football team for 11 blocks. Grace almost smiled. I don't know if he talks. Then I'll find out. Daniel Hayes was standing beside the car when she came through the garage door, and the first thing Sophia noticed was that he wasn't on his phone. Every driver she'd ever had was on his phone. Scrolling, texting, half asleep behind sunglasses. This one was just standing there with his hands loose at his sides facing the ramp, and when she came out, he'd already opened the rear door. Not after she reached it, but 8 steps before, like he'd measured her stride. I was maybe 33, 34. Not big. That was the thing she'd remember later. Not big at all, an ordinary build, under an ordinary jacket, brown hair cut short, and cheap boots that had been resold instead of replaced. Miss Whitmore, Daniel Hayes. You're the driver. Yes, ma'am. Don't call me ma'am. I'm not your grandmother. Yes, Ms. Whitmore. She stopped, one hand on the doorframe. 3 rules. 1, I don't talk in the morning. 2, if the radio is on when I get in, it's off before I sit down. 3, when I say a route, you drive that route. I don't want opinions about traffic. Understood. Understood. Good. She got in. The door closed with the softness of a man who had been trained not to slam things. He drove her to Lexington, and she didn't look at him once. That evening, Daniel picked his daughter up from the after-school program at St. Bridget's at 6:15, which was 11 minutes later than he wanted, and 45 minutes earlier than the day would have allowed if Sophia had run long. Lily Hayes was 7 years old and had opinions about everything. Dad, you're late. I'm early. You're late for you. She climbed into the back seat of the old Corolla and buckled herself in without being told, because they'd had that conversation exactly once. Mrs. Alvarez said I could be a tree in the play, or I could be the narrator, and the narrator has to read a whole page, and I said I want the whole page. Course you did. Trees don't say anything. Trees say plenty. Nobody listens. She thought about that, which she always did, which was his favorite thing about her. That's sad. It's not sad if the tree doesn't mind. They ate spaghetti at the little table in the 1-bedroom in Astoria. She had the bedroom, he had the couch, and he'd told her the couch was better for his back, and she believed him because she was 7. Afterward, he sat on the floor with her math worksheet and made a bad joke about 7 times 8, and she groaned like he'd committed a crime, and he thought this is the whole thing. This is all of it. At 40 after she was down, His phone buzzed with a number he didn't have saved, but recognized anyway. The way you recognize a knock on a door you swore you'd never open. He let it ring out. It rang again. He turned the phone face down on the counter and stood there with both hands on the edge of the sink, breathing slow until it stopped. The first week, Sophia noticed nothing about Daniel Hayes, because there was nothing to notice, and that was the point. The second week, she started noticing. Small things. He never parked where the last driver parked. Outside the Four Seasons, he pulled past the entrance and stopped with the car's nose angled toward the street instead of tucked against the curb. At the Midtown office, he circled once before dropping her every single time, even at 6 in the morning when the block was empty. And he got out. Every time. Even when it was raining, even when she waved him off, he was out of that car and standing at the rear door with his body turned toward the sidewalk before she touched the handle. On Thursday, she finally said something. "You don't have to do that." "Do what, Ms. Whitmore?" "Get out. It's 12 feet to the door. I've managed 12 feet before." "Yes, Ms. Whitmore." The next morning, he got out again. She stood there in the rain for a second looking at him. "Are you being difficult?" "No." "Then why are you standing in the rain?" "Because you're standing in the rain." She didn't have an answer for that which annoyed her more than the rain did. Victor Reynolds had been her father's friend before he was her partner. And that was the trick of him. He came pre-approved, stamped by a dead man who couldn't be asked about it anymore. How was 61? Silver-haired, the kind of man who remembered your assistant's daughter's name and used it. He'd put $11 million into Whitmore Dynamics when the company was 4 engineers and a patent application, and he never let anyone forget it. Though he did it so gracefully that people thanked him for reminding them. Sophia. He caught her outside the boardroom that Friday, both hands out like he was catching a football. The Halverson numbers. "I saw them. Did you see them, or did you see them?" "Victor, I read 140 pages on a plane. I saw them." "Then you know we're exposed on the Q3 delivery. If the Denver line slips again." "It won't slip." "You said that in April." She stopped walking. "And it didn't slip in April." He raised his hands, smiling, palms out, peace. "You're right. You're right. I'm an old man who worries. Your father used to tell me I'd worry a rock into gravel. He always did that." Dropped her father in like a coin in a slot machine and waited to see what came out. What came out every time was Sophia standing down. "I'll look at Denver myself," she said. "That's all I ask." He walked away, and she stood there for a second with a feeling she couldn't name. Like the moment you realize the room's gotten cold, and you don't know how long it's been that way. The following Tuesday, Daniel changed the route. They were headed downtown for a 9 o'clock, and instead of taking Park down to 23rd, he cut west on 46th, then south on 6th, and Sophia looked up from her tablet halfway through the second turn. "This isn't the route." "No, ma'am, Ms. Whitmore." "I said Park." "Yes." "So why am I on 6th? He didn't answer right away. His eyes went to the mirror, not the rear view she noticed. The side mirror, left side. "There's a gray Suburban that's been behind us since 63rd, he said. "Made every turn. I wanted to see if it was going where we were going." Sophia set the tablet down. "Are you serious?" "Yes." "It's Manhattan. There are 4,000 gray Suburbans." "There are. This one's been behind us Monday and Thursday, too." She turned and looked out the back window. Traffic, buses, a cab. Nothing. "It's gone now," Daniel said. "Because it was never there. It turned off on 49th. "You're telling me you memorized a car?" "Plates, Jersey. Partials on my phone." Sophia stared at the back of his head. "Pull over." "Ms. Whitmore." "Pull over." He pulled over. He put the car in park. He waited. "Daniel." She used his name for the first time, and it came out sharp enough to cut. "You're a driver. Do you understand what that means?" "It means you sit in that seat and you go where I say. It does not mean you conduct surveillance on the population of New Jersey. It does not mean you decide what's dangerous. I have a security director. I have a firm on retainer. I have people whose entire job is the thing you're doing for free, and they're not doing it, which means it doesn't need doing. Yes. Your job is to drive me, not to protect me. Silence in the car. She expected him to argue. Every man she'd ever put in a corner argued that was the whole reason she put them there, to watch what came out when the polite ran out. Daniel just said, "Understood," and put the car in gear. She sat back unsatisfied in a way she couldn't explain. She'd won. She hated how it felt like she'd tripped somebody. 12 blocks later, she said, "What firm did you work for before this?" "I drove for a car service in Queens." "Before that?" A pause. Half a second. She only caught it because she'd spent her entire adult life catching half seconds in negotiations. "Logistics," he said. "Logistics." "Yes." That's a word people use when they don't want to say a word. He met her eyes in the mirror for exactly as long as it took to be respectful, and then he looked back at the road. "Yes, Ms. Whitmore." That night she pulled his file. It took her 4 minutes to realize something was wrong with it, and another 20 to realize she couldn't say what. Daniel Hayes, 34. Address in Astoria. Commercial license clean. Background check clean. No arrests, no liens, no civil suits. Employment, a car service in Queens, 2 years. Before that, a security firm in Baltimore, 3 years, defunct. Before that, nothing. Not a gap. Sophia had seen gaps. Gaps had shapes. Prison addiction, a bad divorce, a business that ate a man alive. Gaps had residue. This was different. This was a man who existed fully and completely from age 29 forward and simply had not existed before it. She sat in her apartment at 11 at night with the city glittering behind her, and she thought about how she'd told him he was a driver, and then she thought about the way he'd taken her father's no. Not her father's. The way he'd stood in the rain. She called Grace. "It's 11. "I know what time it is. Curtis Ward. Get him in my office at 7. 7 a.m. "Is there another 7? Curtis Ward had run corporate security for Whitmore Dynamics for 5 years and had the calm, slightly bored manner of a man who had never had a genuinely bad day at work. "The garage cameras," Sophia said. "Level 3. When did they go down?" Ward blinked. "They didn't go down. They were down last Wednesday for 4 hours. That's hang on." He pulled up something on his phone, frowned. "That's a scheduled maintenance window." "Scheduled by whom?" "Facilities." "Which person in facilities?" "Sophia, I'd have to find out." She leaned forward. "Also, vendor badges. How many active contractor credentials are in the building right now?" 80-90. "How many were issued in the last 60 days? Ward's frown deepened, and she watched him do the math on how bad the answer might be. "I don't have that in my head." "Then get it in your head." She stood. "And Curtis, how did you know about the Wednesday window?" "You just..." "No. I asked you when the cameras went down. You said they didn't. You didn't say let me check. You said they didn't. That means you already knew about a maintenance window, and you assumed that's what I meant." Ward's face did something interesting. Not guilt. Something closer to a man realizing he'd been sloppy in a room where sloppy was expensive. "I'll pull everything," he said. "Today." She didn't tell Daniel any of it. She told herself that was because he was a driver. It was not because she was in some small and unfamiliar corner of herself, embarrassed. Wednesday, a man walked into the lobby at 5:52 p.m., wearing a delivery uniform and carrying a clipboard, and asked the desk which elevator bank served the executive floors. Daniel was standing by the west column waiting for Sophia to come down, and he watched the whole thing without appearing to watch any of it. Wrong shoes. That was the first thing. The uniform was right. The clipboard was right. The lanyard was even right, but the shoes were wrong. Delivery men wore shoes that had done 11 miles that day. These were clean. Second thing he asked, which elevator bank? Anyone actually delivering to a company gets a floor number, not a bank. Third thing, and the one that made Daniel's stomach go quiet and cold, when the desk officer said, "Sign here." The man signed with his left hand, while his right stayed at his side, thumb hooked into his belt. Daniel walked over. "Hey brother, you looking for 18? The man turned, late 30s, Blank pleasant face. 22. 22's Whitmore. They don't take deliveries after 5, they take 'em at the dock on 45th. Daniel smiled an easy, harmless, dumb smile that he had not used in 5 years and which came back to him like a language he'd been raised in. I'll walk you. It's a pain to find. Half a second. Nah, the man said. I'll come back. You sure it's no trouble? I'll come back. He walked out. Daniel followed him as far as the revolving door stood inside it and watched him get into the passenger side of a gray Suburban idling in the bus lane. He memorized the plate. Full this time. Then he went back to the west column and stood there with his hands loose at his sides, and when Sophia came out of the elevator at 6:04, he opened the door for her and said nothing at all. He'd learned that lesson. She'd taught it to him herself. He told Curtis Ward instead. He called the security office from the garage at 6:40 after he'd dropped her and gave the plate and the description and the time, and Ward listened, and Ward said, "Appreciate it, Hayes. I'll look into it." He knew the badge protocol, Daniel said. He had a real lanyard. I said I'll look into it. Right. Daniel paused. You want the plate again? I've got the plate. He hung up. Daniel sat in the car in the dark of the garage for a full minute with his hands on the wheel. Ward hadn't written anything down. There'd been no click of a pen, no keyboard, no say that again. A man taking a plate number writes it down. A man taking a plate number he already has does not. Thursday night. Lily had a fever of 101. And Daniel didn't sleep. He sat on the edge of her bed with a wet cloth and a glass of ginger ale gone flat. And she said in that thin, small voice, "Kids get, are you going to be here in the morning?" "I'm always here in the morning." "You go to work early." "I go to work after you wake up, every day. That's the deal." "What if you had to go before?" "Then I wouldn't go." She thought about it. "You'd get fired." "Then I'd get fired." "That's not smart, Dad." He laughed quietly and put the cloth back on her forehead. "No, but it's right." She fell asleep around 2. He didn't. He sat in the dark kitchen with his phone in front of him and the missed calls stacked up on the screen. 6 now over 3 weeks, same number, no voicemail. At 3:15 a 7th call came in. He answered it this time. He didn't say anything. Neither did the person on the other end. There was breathing and traffic somewhere behind it, and then a voice that Daniel had last heard in a place he had spent 5 years trying not to name said, "Astoria's nice. Little balcony. She likes the yellow backpack, huh?" Daniel did not move. His voice when it came was as flat and pleasant as a man ordering coffee. "You're going to want to be very careful with the next thing you say." "Easy. Easy. Nobody's saying anything. Just letting you know we found you." A short laugh. "Took a while. You did good disappearing. Whole new name and everything." "What do you want?" "Not a thing in the world. We want you to keep driving. Nice and quiet. Same as you've been doing." A pause. "Except Tuesday nights. Tuesday nights you're going to get a text telling you to go home early. And if I don't, then it's not us who has a problem, Danny. It's a little girl with a yellow backpack who walks out of St. Bridget's at 3:05. The line went dead. Daniel sat there for a long, long time. Then he got up, went into the bedroom, and stood in the doorway, watching his daughter breathe until the window turned gray. Friday morning, 7:02 a.m. Sophia came out of the building, and Daniel had the door open 8 steps before she reached it, same as always. But she stopped, because he looked wrong, not tired. She knew tired. She'd been tired for a decade. This was something else. There was a stillness to him that hadn't been there before, the stillness of a man who has already decided something and is only waiting for the world to catch up. "You didn't sleep," she said. "My daughter had a fever." "Is she all right?" The question surprised them both. Sophia heard it come out of her mouth and had a brief, unpleasant sensation of not recognizing her own voice. "She's better this morning," Daniel said. "Good." She got in. They rode 11 blocks in silence. Then Daniel said without turning around, "Ms. Whitmore, may I ask you something out of line?" "You've been out of line for 3 weeks. Go ahead." Do you have a route home that isn't the route home? Sophia looked up. What? A second way. Different streets, different garage, different door. Something you've never used. Why would I? Please just answer it. Nobody spoke to her that way. Nobody had spoken to her that way since her father, and he'd been dead 11 years. No, she said slowly. I take the same route. I've taken it for 4 years. It's the fastest. Yes, Daniel said. It is. And something about the way he said it, flat, quiet, final, put a cold finger straight down the middle of Sophia Whitmore's spine. Daniel. Ms. Whitmore. What did you see? He was quiet for so long that she thought he wasn't going to answer. Nothing I can prove, he said. And you told me my job is to drive. I'm asking you a question. You're asking me a question you told me not to answer. Her jaw tightened. Fine. Then here's a different one. Where were you before Baltimore? The car slowed for a light. Daniel's hands stayed at 10 and 2. You pulled my file, he said. I pull everyone's file. Then you know what's in it. I know what isn't. The light turned green. He drove. Ms. Whitmore, he said, if I told you where I was, you'd fire me by Monday, and I need this job. Why? Why it's a driver's salary? Because it comes with a schedule, Daniel said. Because I'm home by 7 most nights. Because my daughter's school is 9 minutes from your building, and if something ever happened, I could be there in 9 minutes. He glanced up, and for the first time in 3 weeks, he held her eyes in the mirror longer than was respectful. That's what the job's worth to me, not the salary. Sophia Whitmore, who had built a career on knowing what people wanted, sat in the back of her own car and realized she had absolutely no idea what this man wanted. She should have let it go. Instead, that afternoon, she did something she had not done in 6 years. She walked into the security office herself instead of summoning someone to hers. Curtis Ward wasn't there. His deputy, a kid named Ramirez, was, and Ramirez, who had never been briefed on what to hide, cheerfully pulled up the lobby footage from Wednesday evening when she asked. She watched a man in a delivery uniform walk in at 5:52. She watched him talk to the desk. She watched Daniel Hayes walk over, smile the easiest, dumbest smile she'd ever seen on a human face, and walk that man to the door without touching him once. She watched Daniel stand inside the revolving door for 19 seconds afterward, absolutely motionless, watching the street. Who's the delivery guy? She asked. Ramirez checked. Badge scans as Meridian Facilities. That's our HVAC vendor. At 6 p.m. Yeah, that's He typed, frowned. That's weird. What? That credential was issued 11 days ago, and it's been scanned into the executive floors 4 times. He looked up at her suddenly, a lot less cheerful. Ms. Whitmore, we don't have an HVAC issue on 22. We haven't had a work order up there all year. Sophia stood very still. Who authorized the credential? Ramirez clicked. Clicked again. His face changed. It's the approvals under the executive suite. Partner-level sign-off. He turned the monitor. Mr. Reynolds. Outside on Lexington, 40 feet below and 200 feet down. Daniel Hayes stood beside a black town car with his hands loose at his sides, watching a gray Suburban ease past the corner of 46th for the 3rd time that hour. Friday, 4:41 p.m. Sophia did not say Victor's name out loud. That was the first decision she made, and later she would think it was the only smart one she made all week. Ramirez, she said, close that window. Ma'am, close it, don't print it, don't email it, don't mention it to Curtis. The kid looked up at her with the specific expression of a 26-year-old who has just realized he is standing in the middle of something. Is there a problem with Mr. Ward? I don't know yet. That's why you're not going to mention it. She put a hand flat on the desk beside his keyboard. How much of the badge system logs to a server you control versus a server the vendor controls? Both. Ours mirrors theirs. Can somebody delete from ours? Only admin. Who's admin? Me. Curtis. And the executive suite has a master credential, but nobody's ever used it. Pull the last 90 days off that mirror and put it on something physical. A drive, not the cloud. Do it now, and when it's done, bring it to me personally, and don't tell anyone you did it." Ramirez swallowed. "Am I going to get fired for this?" "You're going to get fired if you don't." She walked out of the security office at 4:53 and made it exactly 9 steps down the hallway before Victor Reynolds came around the corner with 2 coffees, one of which he held out to her like a man who had been waiting. "There she is." Sophia's face did what it had done in 400 negotiations. It smiled. "Victor, you were in security. I was in security. Everything all right? Badge audit. Insurance wants it before renewal." She took the coffee. "You know how they are." "I do." He fell in beside her, walking her toward the elevators, the way he'd been walking her toward a thing since she was 23. "Speaking of which, the Denver line. I said I'd look at it myself." "You did, and you will, and I'm not nagging." He sipped. "But the board's going to ask on the 29th, and I would rather you have an answer than a plan to get an answer. The 29th is a routine quarterly. Nothing's routine when the number's soft." She stopped at the elevator and pressed the button and looked at him, and for the first time in 11 years, she looked at him the way she looked at a counterparty across a table. Silver hair, good coat. The little gold pin from her father's old company on his lapel, which he wore twice a month, which he had worn to the funeral. "Victor, do we use Meridian for HVAC? Not a flicker, not one." "Meridian, I think so." "Why?" "They billed us for work on 22. Then somebody made a mistake." He shrugged, warm and easy. "Send it to me. I'll chew on them. That's what old men are for." The elevator came. She stepped in. He didn't. "Sophia." "Yes." "Your father would be very proud of what you did with the Halverson deal," Victor said. "I mean that." The doors closed on his smile, and Sophia stood alone in a steel box going up 40 floors and thought very clearly and very calmly that she had just watched a man lie to her without a single change in his heart rate, and that she had known him since she was a child, and that she had absolutely no idea who he was. Friday, 6:02 p.m. Daniel opened the rear door 8 steps before she got there. She stopped in front of him instead of getting in. "Wednesday night," she said. 5:52. "A man came into the lobby in a delivery uniform and you walked him out." Daniel's expression didn't change. "Yes." "You didn't tell me." "I told Ward." "I know you told Ward. Ward didn't tell me." She let that sit. "What did you see?" "Ms. Whitmore, we're standing on a sidewalk." "Then get in the car." "Ma'am." "Get in the car, Daniel. Both of us. Front seat, back seat. I don't care, I want the doors shut." He got in. She got in. The doors shut, and the noise of Lexington Avenue dropped away to nothing, and Sophia Whitmore turned in her seat and said, "Now." "Wrong shoes," Daniel said. "Excuse me." His shoes were clean. A guy who's been on a delivery route since 8 in the morning has shoes that look like it. His didn't. Second thing, he asked the desk which elevator bank goes to the executive floors. Nobody making a real delivery asks that. They have a floor number on a manifest. He was watching the mirror while he talked the side one the way he always did. Third thing, he signed with his left hand and kept his right one down at his belt the whole time. What does that mean? It means his right hand was busy or he wanted it free. Sophia felt something cold move through her stomach. "You saw that from across a lobby?" "Yes." "In how long?" 6 seconds, maybe 8. "And then you walked over and smiled at him?" "Yes." "Why smile?" "Because a man who thinks you're stupid leaves," Daniel said. "A man who thinks you're a threat has to decide something. I didn't want him deciding anything in a lobby with 40 people in it." Sophia sat back. She had built a $900 million company on reading rooms. She had walked into a Tokyo boardroom at 29 and known within a minute which of the 6 men would fold. She was, by any honest measure, one of the most dangerous people in any room she entered, and she had walked past this man twice a day for 4 months and seen a driver. "That badge," she said quietly. "The one he was carrying. It was real." I figured. Somebody in my company issued it. Yes, ma'am. Do you know who? No. He paused. Do you? She opened her mouth to say it. Victor Reynolds. 4 syllables. Say it to the one person in the building who had already seen it coming. And she didn't. Because she had known Victor for 11 years and known Daniel for 4 months. And because saying it out loud would make it real. And because some ugly, stubborn animal in the back of her skull kept insisting that she was overreacting. That she was becoming her father sitting in the dark with the television off. No, she said. Daniel looked at her in the mirror for 1 second longer than was polite. Okay, he said. He put the car in gear and pulled into traffic, and neither of them said anything for 30 blocks, and both of them were lying. Monday, 7:02 a.m. He was there. Door open 8 steps out. Same as always. Monday, 7:40 p.m. He dropped her at her building on 79th, and this time he walked her to the lobby door, which he had never done, and he looked at the door for a moment before he opened it. Your building has a service entrance on the north side, he said. Yes. Is it badged? It's badged. Has anybody checked whether the badge log matches the door log? Daniel. I'm asking a question, Ms. Whitmore. That's all. You told me to drive. I'm driving, but I'm asking a question. Sophia stood in her own doorway, with her keys in her hand, and felt the strangest sensation of her adult life, which was the sensation of being taken care of by someone who wanted nothing from her. I'll have it checked, she said. Thank you. Daniel. He stopped. Your daughter. What's her name? He hesitated. That half-second again. Lily. Lily, Sophia repeated. Is she better? She's better. Good, Sophia said, and went inside and did not sleep well. Tuesday, 3:58 p.m. Daniel's phone buzzed on the passenger seat while he was parked on 46th with the engine off. It said one thing. Go home early tonight. He read it 4 times. Then he set the phone down, put both hands on the wheel, and sat there while a bus went by, and another one, and a delivery bike, and a woman with a stroller. He thought about Lily's yellow backpack. I thought about the sound of that voice on the phone at 3:15 in the morning. A voice he had spent 5 years teaching himself to forget, and how it had not changed in 5 years. Not 1 degree. Still that easy. Conversational warmth, like a man telling you about a restaurant. He thought about a hallway in a building in another country, and a door, and what had been on the other side of the door, and what he had said afterward, in a room with a table and a recorder and 2 lawyers who wrote everything down. He picked the phone back up and typed OK. Then he opened a different app and booked a car service. Not his. A competitor. 6:30 pickup at St. Bridget's destination Bay Ridge, an address that belonged to a woman named Rosa Alvarez, who had watched Lily since she was 2, and who owed Daniel nothing and would have died for him anyway. Then he called Rosa. Rosita. Danny. I need 3 nights. Silence on the line. Rosa Alvarez had raised 4 boys in Brooklyn and had a very finely tuned ear for the sound of a man not saying something. Is it money? It's not money. Is it police? It's not police. Then it's the other thing, Rosa said. The thing you don't talk about. Daniel closed his eyes. 3 nights, Rosita. She'll tell you she's the narrator in the play. Let her practice. She needs an audience. You bring her to me, and you don't tell me nothing, and I'm supposed to be okay with this. No, Daniel said. You're not supposed to be okay with it. I'm asking anyway. Rosa was quiet for a long moment. 6:30, she said, and hung up. Tuesday, 5:50 p.m. He knocked on the glass partition of Grace Okafor's desk on 22, which he had never done because drivers did not come up to 22. Grace looked up. Mr. Hayes. Is Ms. Whitmore working late tonight? She's got the Halverson call at 7, and then dinner with legal. Where's dinner? I'm not going to tell you that. Fair, Daniel said. Then can you tell her something for me? Tell her I'm going home early and I'm sorry. Tell her Ellis's nephew is covering the car tonight. He's licensed. He's fine. He paused. And tell her not to use the garage. Grace put her pen down. Say that again. Tell her not to use the garage tonight. Have the car meet her on the street. Any street, not the garage. Mr. Hayes, if you have a security concern, there's a whole department. I know. So why are you telling me? Daniel looked at her, and something in his face made Grace Okafor, who had been Sophia Whitmore's shield for 6 years and had turned away senators, stop talking. Because I don't know which floor the problem's on, he said. And you're the only person in this building who's never once been rude to me. He left. Grace sat there for a full minute. Then she wrote it down on a sticky note word for word and put it on Sophia's monitor, where she could not possibly miss it. Tuesday, 6:41 p.m. Sophia read the note twice, said, "What?" out loud to an empty office and called Grace. Where is he? He went home. He said his replacement's licensed. He said don't use the garage. That's what he said. Sophia, do you want me to call Ward? Sophia opened her mouth. Curtis Ward, who had told her the cameras hadn't gone down before she finished asking. Curtis Ward, who had taken a plate number over the phone and not written it down. No, she said. Don't call Ward. Then what do you want me to do? Go home, Grace. Sophia. Go home, now, and take the front doors. Tuesday, 6:44 p.m. Ramirez knocked on her door with a flash drive in his hand and his jacket already on. That's 90 days, he said. Every scan, every credential issue, every override. Overrides. Yeah, that's the part I wanted to show you. He set it down. Somebody's been using the executive master to open level 3 of the garage. That's the deck where your car parks. How many times? 19, since March. 19. And Ms. Whitmore, the master's supposed to log a name. It logs a badge number, and the badge number resolves to a name in the vendor system. Ramirez's jaw was tight. In ours it's blank. 19 blanks. Sophia stared at the drive. Somebody's been scrubbing it. Somebody with admin. You're admin. Yeah, Ramirez said. And so's Curtis. Tuesday, 6:49 p.m. Daniel picked Lily up personally because he had decided somewhere around Queensboro Plaza that he was not putting his daughter in a stranger's car, no matter how clean the app was. She got in and buckled up and said, "Why is Rosa's?" "Because I've got a couple late nights." "You never have late nights." "I do this week." She was 7, not stupid. She looked at him in the mirror for a while, and then she said in a much smaller voice, "Did we do something?" Daniel had to take a breath before he could answer that. "No, baby, you didn't do anything, not one thing." "Then why do you have your quiet face?" "I don't have a quiet face." "You have your quiet face," Lily said. "You had it when Mom left." He drove 3 blocks without saying anything at all. "Lily, if a grown-up you don't know says I sent them, what do you say?" "I say my dad doesn't send people." "That's right." "And I go back inside and I find Mrs. Alvarez or a teacher." "That's right." "Dad." Her voice wobbled once and then steadied, and it was the bravest thing he had ever heard. "Is somebody being mean to you at work?" "Something like that." "Is it the lady, the boss lady?" "No," Daniel said. "No, it's not her. She's all right, actually. She's better than she thinks she is." Tuesday, 7:20 p.m. The Halverson call ran long because they always ran long because the Norwegians like to circle a thing 11 times before landing on it. At 8:05, Sophia hung up and looked at the sticky note on her monitor. At 8:07, she stood up, put on her coat, took the elevator to the lobby instead of the garage, and walked out the front doors onto Lexington in the rain, where a car she did not recognize was waiting with a young man in it who introduced himself as Marcus Ellis and apologized twice for the traffic. At 8:09 on level 3 of the garage, the lights on the north row went out. Nobody was there to see it. At 8:14, they came back on, and the log recorded nothing at all. Wednesday, 7:00 a.m. Daniel was standing beside the car when she came out. Sophia walked straight past the open door and stopped in front of him. "Who told you not to use the garage?" "Ms. Whitmore." 19 times, she said. "Somebody has used an executive override to open level 3 of my garage 19 times since March, and the name field is blank every single time, which means somebody has been going in there and cleaning up after themselves. And last night at 8:09, the north row lights went dark for 5 minutes, and my security system did not log it." Her voice had gone flat and hard and very quiet. "And you knew. Before any of it. You knew in a car on 6th Avenue 3 weeks ago, and I told you your job was to drive." Daniel didn't say anything. "Say something." "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to say I told you so." "I'm not going to say that." "Why not?" She was almost shouting now, which she never did, which she had not done since a hospital corridor 11 years ago. "Everyone else in my life would say it. Victor would say it so gently I'd thank him for it. Say it." "Because it wouldn't help you," Daniel said, "and it would make me feel better, and that's a bad trade." Sophia stood in the rain and stared at him. "Get in the car," she said. "Not the back, the front." Ms. Whitmore. "Get in the front seat, Daniel." Wednesday, 7:11 a.m. They sat in a parked car on 79th Street with the engine running and the wipers off, and the rain came down on the windshield until they couldn't see out of it, which was, Sophia realized later, exactly why he'd let it. "I'm going to ask you a question," she said, "and if you lie to me, I'll know." "All right. Are you in trouble?" Daniel's hands were on his knees. He looked at them. "Yes." "Is it about me?" "It's about you now." "What does that mean?" "It means somebody called me," Daniel said. 3 weeks of calls. I didn't answer. Thursday night at 3:15 in the morning I answered. And he told me my daughter's backpack is yellow." Daniel's voice did not rise. That was what frightened her. It did not rise at all. "He told me she comes out of St. Bridget's at 3:05. He told me all I have to do is keep driving nice and quiet and go home early on Tuesday nights." Sophia felt the blood leave her face. Last night was Tuesday. Last night was Tuesday. That's why the note. That's why the note. Daniel. She had to stop and start again. "You could have just gone home. You could have gone home and kept your mouth shut, and your daughter would be safe, and I would have walked into that garage at 8, and I would have never known you had anything to do with it." "Yes." "So why didn't you?" He turned his head and looked at her, and Sophia Whitmore, who had built a life on never needing anything from anyone, found that she could not hold his eyes. "Because I already did that once," Daniel said. "I kept my mouth shut once, 5 years ago, and I've been paying for it every single day since, and I am not going to hand my daughter a father who did it twice." The rain hammered on the roof. "Who are you?" Sophia said. "You know who I am." "I know what your file says." "My file's clean because somebody made it clean," Daniel said. "That's what happens when you testify." "Testify against who?" "Men I worked with." "Doing what?" "Contract security, overseas. The kind that has a corporate name and a corporate logo, and nothing corporate about it." He was quiet a moment. "There was a building. There were people in it who were not supposed to be in it, and my team lead made a call, and I was on the door, and I did what I was told. And afterward, I sat in a room in Virginia for 11 days and told 2 federal attorneys everything I saw." "How many went to prison?" 4. "And the 5th? Daniel almost smiled. It was not a good smile. "You're quick." "How many, Daniel?" "There was a 5th, he said. He got a mistrial on a chain of custody problem and a plea on something small. And he did 31 months in a federal camp in Pennsylvania, and he got out in November." He looked out at the rain. "His name is Cole Brennan. He's the one who called me." Wednesday, 7:29 a.m. "They changed my name," Daniel said. "Hayes isn't mine. I was Daniel Cross. I had a wife who couldn't do it anymore, which I don't blame her for, not one bit. And I had a daughter who was 2, and they gave me a new social and a driving job in Baltimore and told me to be boring." He shrugged. "I was good at it. I liked it. You can raise a kid on boring." "Then how did he find you?" "That's the part I've been chewing on for 6 days." Daniel finally turned and looked at her. "Ms. Whitmore, how did I get this job?" "HR hired you." "HR hired me out of a car service in Queens. I'd been there 22 months. I never applied to your company. I never sent a resume. I never talked to a recruiter." He said it slowly because he needed her to hear it slowly. Somebody called my dispatcher and asked for me by name. Sophia went very still. That's not possible. I called Ray on Monday, my old dispatcher. He remembered it because it was strange. A corporate account called and said they were expanding their carpool and they'd been referred to a specific driver. Daniel's jaw worked. Hayes. D. Hayes. Referred by who Ray said, and the guy on the phone said a mutual friend. Who was the account? Ray doesn't have it anymore. The account closed after the placement. Daniel. Sophia's hands had gone cold in her lap. Are you telling me you didn't stumble into my car? I'm telling you I was put in it. Why? That, Daniel said, is the question that's been keeping me up. Because if Brennan just wanted me, he could have taken me off a sidewalk in Queens any day for 2 years. He didn't. He waited until I was driving you. He shook his head slowly. I'm not the target, Ms. Whitmore. I'm the handle. Somebody put a man with a buried record and a daughter in your car, so that when the time came, there'd be exactly one person standing between you and them, and that person could be turned off with a phone call. The wipers were off. The world outside was water and light. Somebody inside, Sophia said. Somebody who could pull a background check and see what wasn't in it, Daniel said. Somebody who could authorize a vendor credential. Somebody who could scrub a name field out of a log. Somebody who could tell Curtis Ward to lose a plate number. He paused. Somebody who knew where you park. Sophia stared through the windshield at nothing at all. 11 years ago, her father had sat at a kitchen table in Ohio with a stack of papers and said, Sophie, I don't understand it. I gave him a third of the company on a handshake, and I have known him since we were 19 years old. She had been 23. She had said Dad who, and her father had said a name, and she had not believed him either. Say it, Daniel said quietly. I can't. You already have. You said it in the car on Friday, and then you said no. He wasn't unkind about it. That was somehow worse. I saw your face. You knew a week ago. Sophia's eyes were burning, and she hated it. He came to my father's funeral, she said. He gave the eulogy. He held my hand in the receiving line for an hour and a half because I couldn't stop shaking, and he wouldn't let go. I know. You don't know. No, Daniel agreed. But I know what it costs to say a name out loud, and I know you're going to have to. Sophia Whitmore sat in the passenger seat of her own car in the rain. Victor Reynolds, she said, and the moment it was out of her mouth. Something in her chest that had been holding a door shut for 11 years. Simply let go, and she put her hands over her face, and Daniel Hayes did the only decent thing available to him, which was to look straight ahead through the windshield and say absolutely nothing until she was finished. Wednesday, 8:15 a.m. She wiped her face with the back of her wrist once, and that was the end of that. Okay, she said. What do we do? We don't. All right. Daniel put his hands back on the wheel. First thing, your board meeting on the 29th. That's 6 days. 6 days is his clock, too. Whatever he's building, it lands before that meeting, or it doesn't land at all. He glanced at her. He needs you scared or he needs you gone. Scared's cheaper. He tried scared last night. He tried it, and it didn't take, and he doesn't know why yet. That's our one advantage, and it lasts about 48 hours. Daniel pulled out into traffic. Second thing, Ward. I want him in a room. No, you don't. You want him exactly where he is doing exactly what he's doing, thinking nobody noticed. The day you put Ward in a room is the day Victor knows. Sophia looked at him for a long moment. You've done this before. I've been on the other side of this before, Daniel said. Which is worse and more useful. Third thing. Third thing is, I need you to do something you're going to hate. Which is? Nothing, Daniel said. For 4 days you go to work, you take meetings, you smile at that man, you take his coffee, you tell him you'll look at Denver. You do not change one single habit. Same hours, same doors, same route. He paused. Except one. Which one? The garage, Daniel said. On Friday night after the Halverson dinner, when your calendar says you leave at 9:40, I want you to go down to level 3 exactly like you always do. Sophia turned in her seat and looked at him. You want me to walk into it? I want you to walk toward it, Daniel said. There's a difference, and I'll be standing in it. Friday, 9:38 p.m. The elevator doors opened onto level 3, and Sophia Whitmore stepped out with her coat over her arm and her heels loud on the concrete, and her heart going so hard she could feel it in her teeth. Daniel was not at the car. Daniel was not anywhere. She got to the rear door and put her hand on the handle, and that was when every light on the north row went out at once. Friday, 9:38 p.m. The dark was total for about 1 second, and in that second, Sophia Whitmore learned something about herself that 11 years of boardrooms had never taught her, which was that when the lights go out, the body does not consult the mind. Her hand came off the door handle. Her back went to the car. Her breath stopped somewhere around the middle of her chest and stayed there. Then the emergency strips along the ceiling came up, that sick low amber that makes everything look like it is happening underwater, and she could see again, and she almost wished she couldn't. There were 4 of them. 2 coming up the ramp side, 2 out of the stairwell door, walking, not running, spread out in a way that was not how 4 men happened to walk into a garage at the same time. Ms. Whitmore. The one in front had a pleasant voice. We're not here to hurt you. Come with us, and nobody has a bad night. Sophia's mouth was so dry she had to swallow twice before anything came out. Do you know whose building this is? Yes, ma'am. Then you know there are 40 cameras on this level. 22, the man said. And they're fine. They're all working great. That was the sentence that scared her. Not the 4 men. The fact that he wanted her to know the cameras were on. She took 1 step back, and her heel scraped concrete, and the sound went everywhere, and she thought very clearly. He isn't here. He said he'd be standing in it, and he isn't here. And I walked down here because a man I have known for 4 months told me to. Where's my driver? She said. Went home, the man said. Family thing. Friday, 9:39 p.m. No, Daniel said, I didn't. He came out of the dark between the 2nd and 3rd support columns, 30 feet behind them, and he was not walking fast, and he did not have his hands up. All 4 turned. Sophia would think about that moment for the rest of her life, and what she would remember was not fear. It was the reorganization of her entire understanding of a human being happening inside about 1.5 seconds. He came out of the dark, and he was somebody else, not bigger, not louder. He hadn't changed his face, but the way he carried his weight had changed, and where his hands were had changed, and the angle of his shoulders had changed, and the effect was that 4 men who had been walking toward a woman in an amber garage all stopped at once, and none of them had decided to. Stay behind me, Daniel said. He wasn't talking to them. Sophia moved. She got behind him. She, who had not taken an instruction from another human being since she was 23 years old, moved when he said, Move. You're the driver, said the man with the pleasant voice. Yeah. You're supposed to be in Astoria. I know what I'm supposed to be. The man's eyes went over him once, top to bottom, the way you check a receipt. You want to walk away, my friend. Seriously. This is not your money, and it's not your fight, and you've got a kid. Daniel said, Say that part again. Which part? The part about my kid. Nobody said anything. Friday, 9:40 p.m. The 2 on the ramp side came first because 2 on one side always come first, and Daniel moved into them instead of away, which was the thing Sophia could not process. Every instinct in a normal person's body says back up. He went forward. He went forward fast and low, and it was over so quickly that she did not have time to be afraid on his behalf. There was no shouting. That was the strangest part. No roaring, no cursing, none of the noise that movies had taught her to expect. There was the sound of shoes on concrete and 2 short flat impacts, like somebody dropping a phone book on a table, and then a man was sitting down against a concrete pillar holding his arm in a way that arms are not supposed to be held, and the second one was face down over the hood of a parked Lexus and not getting up from it. 4 seconds. Maybe 5. The other 2 stopped where they were. Okay, said the pleasant one, and his voice had lost some of the pleasant. Okay. Turn around and walk out. Can't do that. You can. You don't understand the arrangement." "I understand it better than you," Daniel said. "You were told a driver. You weren't told anything else, or there'd be 6 of you and you'd have come at me first." The fourth man, the youngest one, was staring at him. Sophia saw it happen. She saw the exact moment the kid's face changed. "Wait," the kid said. Wait. Cross." Everything stopped. "Say that again," said the pleasant one without turning his head. "That's Cross." The kid had backed up a full step on his own. "That's Danny Cross. He was on the Aleppo contract. He's the one who talked. He's the one who put Wallace and Delgado in Marion. That's him. That's the guy from the tape." Friday, 9:41 p.m. The pleasant man turned and looked at the kid, and then he looked back at Daniel, and something happened in his eyes that Sophia recognized from 100 negotiations, and it was the specific look of a man discovering that the deal he agreed to was not the deal on the table. "He told us a driver," the pleasant man said. "He would," Daniel said. "He said the driver would be gone." "He said that to me too." "No." The man shook his head slowly. "No, hold on. Hold on. We got a number. We got a night. We got a picture of a woman and a floor plan. And a guy said the car guy goes home at 6. His voice was rising now, and the rise had nothing to do with Daniel. "Nobody said Cross. Nobody said a federal witness. You know what that is? That's a whole different sentence. That's not a scare job that's 20 years. "Yeah," Daniel said. "It is." "He set us up. He set all of us up," Daniel said. "You're the ones who came in the door." Sophia, behind him with her back against the cold panel of her own car, heard her own voice come out of her mouth, and it was steadier than she expected. "Who is he?" she said. "The man who hired you. Say the name and you walk out of here tonight, and I will not press one single charge. I own this building. I own the footage. Say the name." The pleasant man looked at her, and she watched him do the math, and she watched him lose it, because whatever Victor Reynolds had on him was closer than she was. "Lady," he said almost gently, "you don't got the biggest problem in this garage." Then he went for Daniel. Friday, 9:42 p.m. It lasted longer than the first one, maybe 9 seconds. The man knew things. He got a hand on Daniel's jacket, and there was a moment where they were both going sideways into the concrete pillar, and Sophia's whole body clenched, and then somehow the geometry reversed, and it was the other man's shoulder that hit the pillar, and not Daniel's. And then the man was on his knees with his wrist folded up behind him, and Daniel's other hand flat on the back of his neck. And Daniel stopped. He just stopped. He held the man there breathing hard through his nose, and he did not do the next thing. Sophia could see plainly that there was a next thing, and that Daniel knew exactly what it was. "Look up," Daniel said. "What?" "Look up, northeast corner, above the exit sign." The man on his knees looked up. There was a camera there, and its little indicator was dark, and Daniel said, "That one's off. Now look at the pillar behind me, second one down." Sophia looked before the man did. There was a light on it, a small, steady red one. "That's not building equipment," Daniel said. "That's aftermarket. Somebody bolted that up in the last 2 weeks, and it's the only unit on this level that isn't tied to the security office, which means it's not recording for them. It's recording for somebody." So you're not here to take her," Daniel said. "Nobody puts a private camera on a kidnapping." He let go of the man's wrist and stepped back, and the man stayed on his knees, breathing. "You're here to lose, loud, on tape. 4 guys get put down in a garage by the CEO's driver, and the driver turns out to be a federal witness with a sealed file and a name that isn't his. And by Monday morning, there's a story about how Sophia Whitmore hired private muscle under a false identity and hid it from her own board." Daniel's voice went flat. 6 days before a vote. Sophia felt the floor tilt. "That's it," she said. "That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing." "He didn't want to scare me. He wanted a headline," Daniel said. "And he wanted my hands to write it." Friday, 9:44 p.m. The kid ran. Just turned and went up the ramp and kept going, and nobody stopped him. The one with the bad arm was trying to stand and failing. The one on the Lexus had slid down onto the concrete and was making noises. And Daniel walked over to the pillar, reached up and did not smash the camera. Sophia said, "What are you doing?" "Leaving it." "Leave it. That thing is the whole case against me." "That thing is the whole case against him," Daniel said. "Right now, it's recording 4 men who came into a private garage after hours, and 1 guy who stopped and didn't finish it. That footage doesn't say what he needs it to say. He can cut it, but he can't cut what isn't there, and what isn't there is me losing my temper." He turned around. "So we let it run, and we make sure ours runs longer." Ours. He nodded at the ceiling 20 feet away, at a fat gray junction box that Sophia had walked past every day for 4 years without once seeing it. "Ramirez," Daniel said. "Wednesday night. Independent recorder own battery own card, not on the network. He's been getting an hour of nothing every night since. Tonight he gets this." Sophia stared at the box and then at him. "You told a 26-year-old kid to wire a camera without telling me." "You'd have said no." "I would have said no, right." Friday, 9:45 p.m. The stairwell door banged open, and Curtis Ward came through it with a flashlight in one hand and his other hand where a hand goes when a man is carrying something. Everybody in the garage moved at once, except Daniel, who did not move at all. "Nobody touch anything," Ward shouted. "Sophia, Sophia, are you hurt?" She did not answer him. That was what he noticed first, and she saw him notice it, and she watched 5 years of professional composure come apart on a man's face in about 4 seconds. "Sophia." 19 overrides Curtis. He stopped 10 feet away. "On level 3, she said. "Since March." All blanked. "And you told me the cameras never went down before I finished asking you the question." "Sophia, listen to me. And a driver called you with a plate number and a description, and you didn't write it down because you already had it." Her voice cracked once, straight down the middle, and she hated it and kept going anyway. "You've been in my house for 5 years. You came to my apartment when my mother died. What did he pay you?" Ward's flashlight dropped to his side. "He didn't pay me," he said. "Then what?" "My son." Nobody said anything. "My son's 22, Ward said. "He's got a problem. He's had it since he was 19. And 2 years ago he got in for $110,000 to people who do not take a payment plan. And I did not have $110,000, and I was going to lose him." He was looking at the floor. "And Victor knew. I don't know how he knew. Victor knows things. He sat down across from me at a diner on 9th Avenue, and he slid an envelope across the table, and he said, 'Curtis, this is not a loan. This is what friends do.' And I took it. And then he started asking." "Not for a year," Ward said. "That's the part. Not for a whole year. And when he finally asked, it was so small. Schedule a maintenance window. Don't ask why. And then it was a badge. And then it was Curtis, lose that plate." He looked up finally, and his eyes were red. "You never notice the day you become somebody's dog. You only notice about 2 years later." Friday, 9:47 p.m. Sophia opened her mouth, and nothing came out of it, and Daniel spoke instead. "Where is he right now?" Ward blinked at him. "Who are you?" "Where is Reynolds right now, Curtis?" "He's at the Carlisle," Ward said. "He took a room Tuesday. He's been sleeping there all week." Daniel looked at Sophia. "Sleeping at a hotel 11 blocks from his own apartment," he said. 6 days before a board meeting. That's a man who wants to be somewhere he can leave from. He's running. He's staged." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Curtis. Who else is on his list?" "Legal finance. Somebody signs off on the Denver numbers." Ward hesitated. "Curtis," Sophia said, "you are about 11 seconds from being the man who tried to fix it or the man who watched. Pick." "Halloran," Ward said. "In finance. And a woman in legal. I don't have her name, but there's a woman in legal, because twice he told me not to route something through counsel, and both times it went through anyway, and nobody blinked." Sophia closed her eyes for a second. "He's got the vote," she said. "That's what this is. He's not trying to scare me out. He's trying to have enough signatures on the 29th that scaring me is just the cherry." "Yes, ma'am. Don't call me Ma'am Daniel. Sorry." Friday, 9:51 p.m. The man with the bad arm was talking now, which is what men do when they are hurt, and the person who hurt them has stopped and gotten them a bottle of water out of the trunk, which Daniel did, and which Sophia watched with an expression she could not have named. "His name's Brennan," the man said through his teeth. "That's all I got. He don't come to the meets. He calls." Daniel crouched down in front of him. "Cole Brennan." "Yeah." "Describe the call." "Man, I don't." "Describe the call." "He talks like a guy selling you a boat," the man said. "That's it. That's the whole thing. Real friendly. Everything's a favor. He told us this was a scare job for a corporate guy. No weapons. Nobody gets marked in and out 40 grand split 4 ways. He hissed and shifted his arm. 40 grand is not federal witness money. 40 grand is not that. When's he calling you next? He's not. He said after tonight he's done, we don't hear from him again. Daniel stood up slowly. He was cutting you loose. Yeah, I'm putting that together, thanks. Friday, 9:53 p.m. Sophia's phone rang. She looked at it, and the whole garage seemed to go quiet, and she turned the screen toward Daniel, and it said Victor. "Don't," Ward said. "Answer it," Daniel said. "Are you insane? Answer it and say nothing that isn't true and say as little as possible. He's calling because he can't see what happened down here. That camera feeds somewhere, and somebody is watching it, and it didn't do what it was supposed to do." Daniel's eyes had gone somewhere far off the way they went when he was working. "He's calling to hear your voice. If you're calm, he thinks it worked, and you're too proud to say so. If you're crying, he thinks it worked. If you don't answer, he thinks something went wrong. Answer." She answered on the 5th ring. "Victor." "Sophia." That warm, worn kitchen table voice. "I'm sorry, I know it's late. I've been staring at Denver until my eyes bled. Are you still at the office?" "Just leaving." "You're always just leaving." A soft chuckle. "Listen, I want to put something in front of you before the 29th. Not tonight. Breakfast Monday." "What is it?" "It's an ugly conversation, and I'd rather have it over eggs than over a table with 9 other people, but I'm not going to blindside you. You know I'd never do that." Sophia stood in an amber garage with a man on the ground 12 feet away holding his arm. "I know you'd never do that," she said. "Monday then, 7 at the Carlisle." 7 at the Carlisle. "Sophia." A pause. "Get home safe." The line went dead. She lowered the phone very slowly, and then her hand started to shake, and she put the phone in her coat pocket so nobody would see it. "He knew," she said. "No," Daniel said. "He knows something didn't happen. He doesn't know what." "He said get home safe. He says that every time, doesn't he?" "Yes." "Then it's not a message," Daniel said. "It's just the worst thing you've ever heard." Friday, 10:02 p.m. She sat sideways in the back seat with the door open and her feet on the concrete and her head in her hands, and Daniel let her, and after a while she said without looking up, "You could have killed that man." "Yes." "The one on his knees, that was on the table." "Yes." "How do you stop?" Her voice was thin. "I've spent my whole life not stopping. That's my entire personality. How does a person get all the way there and just stop?" Daniel leaned against the fender with his arms crossed. "You want the true answer or the good one?" "True. I didn't stop for him," Daniel said. "I want to tell you I did. I didn't. I stopped because 5 years ago I was on a door in a building, and I did not stop, and a man named Wallace said, 'Go,' and I went. And there were people in that building who had nothing to do with anything." He let out a breath. "And I have a daughter who thinks I'm a guy who drives a car and makes bad jokes about the 7 times table. And every single time it's on the table, I think about which father she gets afterward." Sophia looked up at him. "Does it get easier?" "No," Daniel said. "It gets more familiar. That's a different thing, and people confuse them." Friday, 10:09 p.m. Ramirez came down the stairs at a dead run with a laptop under his arm and stopped so hard he nearly went over. "Oh my God." "Kid," Daniel said. "The car, it's got everything. It's got the whole thing. It's got audio." Ramirez was hyperventilating slightly. "Ms. Whitmore, It's got the guy saying he set us up. It's got Mr. Ward saying the diner thing. It's got all of it. Ward went gray. Yes, Sophia said. It does. Sophia. Curtis, I'm not going to lie to you, so listen carefully. She stood up. You are going to go home tonight, and tomorrow morning at 9, you are going to sit down with a lawyer I choose, and you are going to write down every single thing he ever asked you to do with dates, and you are going to sign it. And then you are going to walk into that boardroom on the 29th, and you are going to say it out loud with him sitting there. Ward's mouth opened, and after that, she said, you're finished here, and I will personally call every person I know until somebody gives you a job, because your son is 22, and he needs a father with an income, and not a father in a cell. Her voice did not soften. That's the whole offer. It doesn't get better if you think about it. Ward stood there in the amber light for a long moment. He's going to know by Monday, he said. Then we go before Monday, Daniel said. Friday 10th, 14 p.m. They put the two men in the back of a black car with a lawyer's phone number and a very specific set of instructions, and Sophia made exactly one call to a woman named Denise Park, who had been her outside counsel for 9 years and who answered on the second ring at 10 at night without a single word of complaint about it. Denise, I need 3 things, and I need you to not ask me why until tomorrow. Go. An emergency board notice for Monday morning, a forensic accountant on the Denver line by Sunday, and a copy of every document Victor Reynolds has touched in the last 6 months, including the ones legal signed that I never saw. There was a pause on the line. Sophia, Denise said, are you telling me what I think you're telling me? Yes. Okay. No drama. Just the sound of a woman sitting up in bed and turning on a light. Okay. I'm putting on coffee. Friday 10:22 p.m. Ms. Whitmore. Sophia. Daniel looked at her. You've been standing between me and 4 men, she said. You can use my first name. Sophia. He said it like it cost something. There's a piece of this that doesn't fit, and it's been bothering me since the kid said my name. Which piece? Victor Reynolds is a finance guy from Cleveland, Daniel said. He is 61 and he golfs. Where does a man like that get Cole Brennan's phone number? Sophia went still. You said Brennan got out in November. He did. And you got hired in March? Yes. So somebody introduced them, she said slowly, in between. Somebody who knew what Brennan was, and knew what I was, and knew I'd been buried, and knew where. Daniel's face was doing something she had not seen it do before. That's not a golf friend. That's not a guy in finance. There are maybe 40 people in this country who could put those 2 facts in the same room, and 35 of them work for the government. Sophia felt the cold start at the back of her neck and go all the way down. Daniel. Yeah. Who else knew where you were? He didn't answer. Friday 10:31 p.m. His phone rang. He pulled it out of his jacket and looked at it, and his whole body changed, and Sophia saw it change, and she was on her feet before she knew she had stood up. What? It's Rosa, Daniel said. He answered it. Rosita. There was a pause on the line and traffic somewhere behind it, and then a voice that was not Rosa Alvarez said, warm as a man telling you about a restaurant. Bay Ridge, nice block, lot of trees. Daniel did not move. Danny, listen, don't do anything. The lady's fine. She's making dinner. I'm sitting in her kitchen, and she made me a plate, and I want you to know I have not touched one single thing in this house. A soft laugh. But we're gonna have that conversation now. The one you owe me. And you're gonna come alone, and you're gonna come right now, and Danny. Yeah. Don't bring the CEO. Friday 10:32 p.m. Daniel did not move, and did not raise his voice, and did not say the man's name. Put Rosa on. Sure. There was a rustle, and then Rosa Alvarez's voice, and it was steady in the way a voice is steady when a woman has decided in advance that she is not going to give a stranger the satisfaction. Danny. Are you hurt? No. Is she asleep? She's asleep. She's upstairs. She did the whole page twice for me, and then she fell asleep in the middle of it like she got shot. A breath. He came to the door at 9. He had flowers, Danny. He said he was your friend from Baltimore. Rosita, I'm going to fix this. I know, Rosa said. I made him a plate. You what? My hands needed something to do, she said, and Daniel heard her voice break for the first and only time. You come get your daughter. The phone changed hands. See, Brennan said. Everybody's civilized. Everybody's got a plate. Now come alone, and Danny, I'm going to say this once so we don't have a misunderstanding later. If I see a light bar on this street, if I see a plain car sitting at the corner with two guys pretending to be tired, if I see anything I don't like, I'm not going to hurt anybody. I'm just going to leave. And then you're going to spend the rest of your life not sleeping. The line went dead. Friday, 10:33 p.m. Sophia was already saying no. You are not driving to Brooklyn alone at 11 at night to meet a man who did 31 months in a federal camp because of you. Yes, I am. Daniel. There's a 7-year-old in that house. Then call the police. He'll be gone before they park. Daniel was moving now, checking the car, his hands doing 3 things at once. And Rosa's front door faces a street with 9 parked cars on it, and he's had 2 hours to figure out which ones matter. This isn't a movie. He'll walk out the back and be on the R train in 4 minutes, and then he's smoke, and the next time I see him, he's picking Lily up from school. So you go get killed instead. He doesn't want me dead, Daniel said. If he wanted me dead, he'd have done it in Astoria 3 weeks ago while I was asleep on a couch. Sophia grabbed his sleeve. Actually grabbed it with her hand, which she had not done to another human being in a decade. Then what does he want? He wants a conversation, Daniel said. That's what scares me. Friday, 10:36 p.m. She let go of his sleeve, and then she did something that surprised both of them. She got in the passenger seat. Get out of the car. No. Sophia. Say my name again. It worked so well the first time. He said, don't bring the CEO. He said, don't bring the CEO into the house, Sophia said. He didn't say anything about a woman sitting in a car 9 blocks away with her phone on, because as far as he knows, I'm a rich lady who faints. And you are going to leave your phone on, and it is going to be in your shirt pocket, and it is going to be calling me the entire time. She looked straight ahead. You told me to let the camera run, so let it run. Daniel stood there with his hand on the doorframe. Ramirez, he said. The card. Ramirez was still holding the laptop like a life preserver. Yeah. 3 copies. 1 to Ms. Park's office tonight. Physically, you put it in her hand. 1 in the building safe. 1 you carry. Daniel pointed at him. And kid, do not go home to your apartment tonight. Go to your mother's. My mother lives in Yonkers. Perfect. Friday, 10:41 p.m. He called a number that had been in his phone for 5 years under the letter B, and that he had never once dialed. It rang 4 times. Boyd. It's Cross. Silence. A long one. Then the sound of a woman sitting up somewhere. Say that again. Daniel Cross, Aleppo. You drove me out of Virginia in a gray Impala, and you bought me a bad egg sandwich at a gas station on 95, and you told me the worst part was over. Danny. Deputy Marshal Ellen Boyd's voice had lost all of its sleep. Where are you? I'm about to go into a house in Bay Ridge where Cole Brennan is sitting at a kitchen table with my daughter asleep upstairs. Do not do that. That's not why I'm calling, Daniel said. I need to know who pulled my file. Nobody pulled your file. Somebody put me in a specific car in March. Somebody called my dispatcher and asked for me by name and said a mutual friend referred me. Ellen. I've been buried for 5 years, and I did it right. I never called my mother. I never went to a reunion. There is no way a man out of a federal camp in November finds me in March, unless a person handed him a piece of paper. He could hear her breathing. Ellen. There was an access flag in January, Boyd said quietly. It came back clean because it was an authorized query. Criminal Division outside counsel review. Retired case, no active protective order, so it doesn't ping the way you think it does. Who ran it? I can't say that on a phone. Ellen. I don't have the name in front of me. Danny, and if I did, I would still have to do this right, and doing it right takes me until Monday. Her voice tightened. And you are going to give me until Monday, Because if you go in that house tonight and something happens, then every single thing you did in that room in Virginia turns into a footnote about a witness who lost it. Daniel looked through the windshield at nothing. Monday's too late, he said, and hung up. Friday 11th, 19 p.m. He parked 2 blocks past the house and walked back, and Sophia sat in the car alone on a street in Bay Ridge, with her phone pressed so hard against her ear that it left a mark, listening to the sound of a man's footsteps on a sidewalk. She heard a screen door. She heard a woman say something in Spanish, low and fast, and a man's voice answer in English, pleasant as a weatherman. There he is. Friday 11th, 21 p.m. Cole Brennan was smaller than Daniel remembered, and that was always the thing about him, that he was a medium-sized man with a medium-sized face who looked like somebody's brother-in-law, and that this had been worth more to him over the years than any amount of muscle. He was sitting at Rosa's kitchen table with a plate in front of him and a fork in his hand. "Sit down. She makes a hell of a pernil." "Rosa," Daniel said, "go upstairs and sit with her." Rosa did not move. "Rosita, I'm not leaving you in my kitchen with this. Please." She went. She went slowly, and she looked at Brennan on the way out, with an expression that made him put the fork down. "Tough lady," he said. "Yeah." "Sit." Daniel sat. Friday 11:23 p.m. "You look tired, Danny. Say what you came to say. Straight to it." "Okay." Brennan pushed the plate an inch away from himself. 31 months. You know what that is? It's not the time. Guys do time. It's that I was 51 years old, sitting in a room with a guy who fell asleep in a chair, and my wife stopped taking the drive after 8 months, and my daughter got married in a church I have never seen. He shrugged, and it was a friendly shrug. "You did that. You did that." "I gave an order that 11 other men would have given. There were 4 people in that building who were not part of anything," Daniel said. "The youngest one was 19. And you sat in Virginia and cried about it for 11 days. "I did, actually." Brennan laughed. He genuinely laughed, and that was the worst sound in the room. "See, that's what I never got about you. You were the best doorman I ever had, and you had a conscience like a bad tooth." He leaned back. "Here's where we are. Tonight was supposed to be simple. 4 guys, a scared woman, a story in the papers. I get paid the back half. I go to Florida. I never think about any of you again. And instead, I got a kid calling me from a bus stop screaming your name into a phone. You knew I'd be there. I hoped you wouldn't." "That's not the same as didn't know." Brennan smiled. "No, it isn't." Friday 11:26 p.m. 9 blocks away, Sophia's hand had gone numb around the phone. "What do you want?" Daniel said. "2 things. First, the card. Whatever your little IT boy stuck to that ceiling, I want it, and I want the copies, and I want the woman to never have seen it. And second, you go back to being nobody." Brennan spread his hands. "That's it. That's the whole ask. Monday morning, you don't show up at that building. Tuesday, you're not in New York. You take the kid, and you go be a guy who fixes air conditioners in Tucson, and I forget the yellow backpack forever, and everybody lives. And Sophia Whitmore. Not my department. That's a no." "Danny, you came into a house where my daughter is sleeping," Daniel said, "and you sat down and ate off a plate a 70-year-old woman made you because her hands were shaking, and you want me to believe you're going to forget anything." He shook his head slowly. "You never forget. That's your whole product." Brennan looked at him for a long moment, and the friendliness slid off his face like a coat. "No," he said. "I don't." Friday 11:28 p.m. "Then tell me one thing and I'll consider it. Consider it." "Who gave me to you?" Brennan's eyebrows went up. "That's your ask. That's what you're spending it on." "Yes." "Why?" "Because a finance guy from Cleveland doesn't have your number," Daniel said. "Because a man who golfs doesn't know what Aleppo is. Because somebody had to know I existed, know I was buried, know where I was buried, and know exactly what I'd be worth standing next to that woman." He put both hands flat on the table. "There's maybe 40 people who could do that, and most of them have a badge." Brennan started smiling again, and Daniel understood that he had been waiting all night to be asked. "You want to know who told me where you were?" "Yes." "She sat on your left," Brennan said. Friday 11th, 29 p.m. The room did not spin. Daniel had heard people describe that, and it had never once happened to him. What happened instead was a cold, clean, quiet click, like a bolt going home, and 11 days in a room in Virginia rearranged themselves in his head in the space of a second. 2 federal attorneys, a table, a recorder. The man had sat across from him. The woman had sat on his left, and she had been the one who kept sliding the water over, and she had been the one who said, "Mr. Cross, take your time, we have all day." "Sloan," he said. "Catherine Sloan," said Brennan, and there was real pleasure in it. "Blew the chain of custody on my box and cried about it in her supervisor's office, and was out of the Southern District in 11 months. And it turns out, Danny, that a woman who ruins her own career on you is a woman who thinks about you a lot. You had something on her. I had a bad afternoon on her, and she had a good lawyer, and the two of us came to an understanding." He picked the fork back up. "She landed soft. Deputy General Counsel. Nice title. Big building on Lexington." Daniel's voice, when it came, was very quiet. "She works for Sophia Whitmore." 8 months now," Brennan said. "Reynolds hired her. Reynolds thinks he found her. That's the beautiful part." Friday 11:30 p.m. In a parked car 9 blocks away. Sophia Whitmore heard the name of her own Deputy General Counsel come out of a speaker and made a sound she was glad no one was there to hear. Friday 11:31 p.m. "So it wasn't Victor," Daniel said. "Victor," Brennan said, "is a 61-year-old man who wanted his company back and didn't want to know how the sausage got made. He said, 'Make her afraid.' Kate said, 'I know a guy.' I said, 'I know a driver.' He shrugged. Everybody got to keep their hands clean except the one guy with a record. That's how it always goes. And now it's a mess, and messes get cleaned." Brennan's eyes came up. "So, the card, Danny." "No." "Say that again." "No," Daniel said. "You're not getting it, and I'm not going to Tucson, and you're going to stand up and walk out of this house. You think you're in a position. I think you've been sitting at that table for 2 hours, because you can't do the loud thing in a house on a residential block with a child upstairs," Daniel said. "You never could. You're not a violent man, Cole. That's what everybody gets wrong about you. You're a man who arranges for violence and then goes to dinner." Brennan stood up. "Danny, sit back down. You know what I actually came for." And the pleasant voice was gone entirely now, and what was underneath it was old and flat and tired. "I came because if you're standing in that boardroom Monday, I'm not a guy who got a plea. I'm a guy who violated on a federal case with a protected witness, and that is the rest of my life. So there is no version of Monday where I let you walk into that room." "There is." "There's not." "There is," Daniel said. "And it's the one where you're not in the country by Sunday, and you know that, and it's why you came here to talk, instead of coming to Astoria to do the other thing." Friday 11:33 p.m. Brennan moved. I was 54 years old, and it had been 3 years, and he was fast anyway, and it went across the kitchen and into the hallway, and it was ugly and short, and almost entirely silent, because both men understood without discussing it that there was a stairway 8 feet away. It ended against the wall by the coat hooks, with Brennan's face turned sideways into the plaster, and his arm up behind him, and Daniel's forearm across the back of his shoulders, and Daniel breathing hard through his teeth, and a picture frame on the floor with the glass cracked in one corner. "Danny, don't. Danny, listen. Listen." Brennan's voice was almost gentle. "Whatever you do to me in this hallway, you do it with a kid on the 2nd floor." Daniel's arm did not move. "Yeah," he said. "I know." And then from the top of the stairs a small voice said, "Dad." Friday, 11:34 p.m. Lily Hayes was standing on the 4th step from the top in a t-shirt with a cartoon whale on it, holding the banister with both hands. Daniel did not look up right away, because he needed a second to make his face into something a 7-year-old could look at. "Hey, baby." "Why are you on the floor?" "I'm not on the floor. I'm helping a guy who fell." Lily looked at the man against the wall, and then at her father, and Daniel watched his daughter decide very quickly not to ask the next question, and it broke something in him that he would not be able to name for a long time. "Rosa's up there," Lily said. "She's crying, but she says she's not." "I know. Are you coming back?" "I'm coming back tonight," Daniel said. "I'll be here when you wake up. That's the deal, right?" "That's the deal. Go up, count to 100 slow, the real slow way." She went. Brennan, with his cheek against the plaster, said, "Cute kid." And Daniel leaned down close to his ear and said in a voice that Sophia Whitmore heard through a phone in a parked car 9 blocks away, and never forgot for as long as she lived, "You are going to walk out of here, and you are going to run. And every day for the rest of your life, you are going to remember that you said those 2 words in this house, and that I let you leave anyway, and you are never going to understand why." Friday, 11:36 p.m. He let him up. Brennan straightened his jacket with the automatic dignity of a man who had been arrested 9 times and rubbed his shoulder and looked at Daniel with something that was almost respect and almost pity. "You're going to lose," he said. "You know that. Guys like Reynolds don't lose, they settle." "Maybe. Kate's going to bury you both." "Maybe." Brennan walked to the door. He stopped with his hand on it. "For what it's worth," he said, "I never gave anybody your address." "I know," Daniel said. "You gave them a car service." Brennan smiled and went out into the dark and did not close the screen door behind him. Friday, 11:38 p.m. Daniel took the phone out of his shirt pocket. "Are you there?" "I'm here," Sophia said, and her voice was ruined. "Did you get it?" "Every word. Denise had a recorder on the line from the second you got out of the car." She swallowed. "Daniel, I have never in my life." Sophia. "Catherine Sloane sat in my office on Tuesday and asked me how I was sleeping." "I know. She signed the Halverson indemnity. She has been in every legal review for 8 months. She knows every single thing about my company." Sophia's voice cracked wide open. "Everything I have is a door that woman has a key to." "Yes," Daniel said. "And she doesn't know we know. That's the only thing we own right now, and we own it for about 36 hours. Saturday, 6:50 a.m. Lily ate cereal at Rosa's table and did not ask about the man, and Daniel sat across from her and did not offer, and after a while she said, "Are you the tree or the narrator?" He put his coffee down. "What?" "In the play. Mrs. Alvarez said trees don't say anything, and you said trees say plenty, nobody listens." She shrugged one shoulder. "So which one are you?" Daniel looked at his daughter for a long moment. "I've been the tree for 5 years," he said. "Is that bad?" "No, baby, it kept us fed." He reached over and pushed her hair off her forehead. "But I think I'm going to read the page on Monday." Saturday, 9:15 a.m. Denise Park's conference room had 11 people in it by 9:15 on a Saturday morning, which Sophia understood was going to cost more than a small house and did not care about at all. Curtis Ward sat at the end of the table with a lawyer beside him and wrote for 4 straight hours and signed 22 pages. Marcus Halloran from finance was harder. Halloran was 58 and had a boat and had spent 11 months restating Denver's numbers in increments so small that no single one of them was a crime, and he came in at 11 a.m., furious, and left at 2 p.m. Shaking and in between, he said the sentence that turned the whole weekend, which was, "I didn't do it for Victor. Legal cleared it. Every single memo, Sloane cleared it. I've got her initials on all of it. Why do you think I felt safe?" Denise Park set her pen down. "Sophia," she said, "that is not a partner going rogue. That is a documented, papered, board-ready case that your company was mismanaged, and it has your general counsel's office on it. And if he stands up on Monday and says it first, he doesn't look like a thief. He looks like the man who caught you." Sophia sat very still. "He's not going to attack me," she said slowly. "He's going to rescue me." Saturday, 4:40 p.m. "Bring her in," Daniel said. "Sloane. Today, not Monday." "Denise says we don't have enough on her to make her talk." "You don't need enough," Daniel said. "You need Brennan." Sophia looked at him. "He ran," she said. "She doesn't know that." Saturday, 6:12 p.m. Catherine Sloan came into the conference room on a Saturday evening in a raincoat apologizing for the traffic, and she was warm and quick and competent, and she sat down and said, "Okay, what's the emergency?" And Sophia Whitmore slid a single sheet of paper across the table. It was a printout of a query log with one line highlighted. Sloan looked at it for 4 seconds, and then her face came apart in a way that no amount of law school prepares a person for. "Where did you get this?" "Catherine, where did you get this?" "He was in a kitchen in Bay Ridge 18 hours ago," Sophia said, "with a 7-year-old asleep upstairs, and he told a man he wanted to kill him, that the person who gave him up sat on his left." Sloan put both hands flat on the table. "I want a lawyer." "You are a lawyer." "I want my lawyer." "You can have 19 lawyers," Sophia said, "starting Monday at 9. Right now, I want to know one thing, and you are going to answer it because you understand better than anyone in this room what the next 12 hours are worth." She leaned forward. "What is Victor putting in front of that board?" Sloane's eyes were wet and furious. "You don't get to be the good guy here," she said. "You built this. You made a company where a man like Victor Reynolds could get 11 years of nobody asking him a single question, because you were too busy being the smartest person in every room." "Yes," Sophia said. "That's true. What's he putting in front of the board?" And Catherine Sloan, who had ruined her own career once already, and could feel the second one going, told her. Monday, 7:00 a.m. Victor Reynolds was already at the table at the Carlyle when she came in, and he stood up because he always stood up, and he pulled out her chair because he always pulled out her chair. "You look tired." "I am tired." "I ordered you the eggs." "Thank you." He sat. He put his napkin on his lap. He looked at her with those warm, exhausted eyes that had been at her father's funeral, and he said, "Sophia, I'm going to ask the board this morning for an operational review, and I'm going to ask for an interim executive chair, and I am going to recommend it be me." Monday, 7:02 a.m. She didn't say anything. "I want you to hear the whole thing before you say a word." He turned his coffee cup a quarter turn. "Denver has been misstated for 3 quarters. That's not an allegation. I've got the reconciliations. There's a compliance officer who's been signing things she shouldn't have signed. And there's a security incident on Friday night in our own garage that involved a driver on our payroll whose background check is, and I quote, our own file incomplete." He looked up. "I know you hired him yourself." "I didn't hire him." "That's not what the file says." "No," Sophia said. "It isn't." Victor's face was pure sorrow. "I don't want this," he said. "You have to know that. I sat in a funeral home 11 years ago, and I promised a man in a box that I'd look after his kid, and every day since then, I have watched you turn into somebody who does not let one single human being help her, and I have thought, that's grief, she'll come out of it. And you didn't come out of it. You got harder. And now, there's a hole in the numbers, and a man with a fake name standing next to you, and I have to choose between the company your father bled for and your feelings." Sophia looked at him for a long moment. "That was good," she said. "Excuse me. That was really good, Victor. The napkin. The pause before Denver. The quote from the file." She picked up her water and drank some. "You've been rehearsing it in a hotel room for 6 days, and it shows in the best possible way." His expression didn't change. That was how she knew. "Sophia, do you know what I kept snagging on?" she said. "All weekend. It wasn't the badges. It wasn't Curtis. It was that you moved into a hotel 11 blocks from your own apartment on Tuesday." She set the glass down. "Men don't do that to be close to the office. They do it so their wives don't have to answer the door." Victor Reynolds sat back in his chair, and the sorrow left his face, and what was under it was nothing at all. Not rage, not fear. Just a tired 61-year-old man doing arithmetic. "How much do you have?" he said. "Enough." That's not an answer. 9 o'clock, Sophia said and stood up. "Thank you for the eggs." Monday, 9:04 a.m. The boardroom held 9 directors, 2 attorneys, a court reporter that nobody had explained, and Daniel Hayes standing against the back wall in a gray jacket, because Sophia had said, "I want you where he can see you," and he had said, "That's theater," and she had said, "Yes, it is." Victor made his motion. He made it beautifully. He spoke for 11 minutes, and he never once raised his voice, and he cried a little at the end when he talked about her father, and Sophia watched two directors put their hands over their mouths. Then Denise Park said, "Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Whitmore has a response and 3 witnesses." Curtis Ward went first. He talked for 19 minutes about a diner on 9th Avenue, and an envelope, and a boy who was 22 years old. And when he got to the part about 19 blank name fields on level 3 of the garage, a director named Alice Fenn took off her glasses and did not put them back on. Halloran went second with his lawyer's hand on his forearm the whole time. Catherine Sloan went third. Monday, 10:41 a.m. And then Denise Park set a laptop on the table and said, "This is 41 minutes of audio recorded Friday night in a private residence in Brooklyn, and I would direct the board's attention to the 9th minute," and pressed a key. A man's voice, warm as a weatherman, filled a boardroom on the 42nd floor of a building on Lexington Avenue. Victor said, "Make her afraid." Kate said, "I know a guy." I said, "I know a driver." Everybody got to keep their hands clean, except the one guy with a record. Nobody in that room moved for 11 seconds. Alice Fenn said into the silence, "Victor, is that about you?" And Victor Reynolds, who had never in his life been asked a question he had not already answered in his head 3 days earlier, opened his mouth and could not find one single word in it. Monday, 10:52 a.m. The vote was 8-1, and the one was Victor, and he voted anyway out loud, which several people later said was the strangest part of the whole morning. He gathered his things without hurrying. He put the cap back on his pen, and on his way past her chair, he stopped and leaned down and said quietly enough that only 2 people in the world heard it. 10 years from now, you'll be exactly what I am, and there won't be anybody in the back of the room to stop you." Sophia looked up at him. "There will be," she said. "That's the difference between us. You made sure there was nobody left who'd tell you no." Victor straightened up. Then he walked past Daniel Hayes without looking at him, and 2 men from the firm Denise had hired walked him to the elevator, and the doors closed on the last person alive who had ever called her Sophie. Monday, 10:58 a.m. The room did not clap. Sophia would think about that later and be grateful for it. 9 directors sat in a boardroom with their hands folded and looked at the table, and Alice Fenn put her glasses back on and said, "I'd like the record to show I nominated that man for the audit committee in 2019. And nobody answered her because there was no answer. Sophia stood at the head of the table with her palms flat on the wood, because if she picked them up, everyone would see. "Denise, what's the sequence?" Notify counsel for the SEC by close of business. Notify the insurer within 24 hours. Voluntary referral to the U.S. Attorney's Office before anybody else calls them, because the only thing worse than being the company that got robbed is being the company that got robbed and sat on it. Denise Park did not look up from her legal pad. "And you make a statement tomorrow morning before somebody makes one for you." "How bad is tomorrow?" "Bad." "How bad?" Denise finally looked up. "You have a personal driver with a sealed federal history and a name that isn't his," she said. "By Wednesday, there will be a photograph of him on a website. There's no version of this where that doesn't happen." Sophia turned her head. Daniel was still against the back wall, exactly where he had been for 106 minutes, hands loose at his sides. He had heard every word of it. He didn't look surprised. That was the thing that hurt. Monday, 11:20 a.m. She caught him in the corridor by the freight elevator, which she had never used in 4 years, and which he had apparently known about since March. "Daniel, I know what you're going to say." "Then say it for me." "You're going to say we can bury it. Non-disclosure on the board, seal the transcript, keep my name out of the filing." He shook his head. "You can't. 9 directors and a court reporter and 2 lawyers heard a recording of a man saying, 'I know a driver.' That's out. It's been out since 10:41. I can make it expensive to print, Sophia." He said it gently. "You can't make it expensive enough. And if you try and it gets out anyway, then the story stops being about Victor Reynolds and starts being about a CEO who hit a witness." She stood in a corridor and felt something she had not felt since a hospital hallway 11 years ago, which was the specific helplessness of understanding a problem completely and being unable to move 1 inch of it. 5 years, she said. You did 5 years of nothing, so she'd have a normal life. And it took me 6 days to burn it. You didn't burn it. I walked you into that room. I walked into that room, Daniel said. You asked. I decided. Don't take that off me. It's the only thing I've got that's mine. Monday, 12:34 p.m. Deputy Marshal Ellen Boyd came off the elevator at 12:34 in a bad suit with a folder under her arm, and the first thing she did was look Daniel up and down like a woman inspecting a car she had sold to somebody who promised to take care of it. You hung up on me. I did. You went in the house. I did. How's the kid? She asked me if I was the tree or the narrator. Boyd blinked. What? It's a long story. Yeah, well? Boyd put the folder on the conference table. I've got the name. It's not going to make you happy. Catherine Sloan. Boyd stopped. How do you have that? She's sitting in a room 40 feet from here with a lawyer, Sophia said. She has been since 8 this morning. Boyd sat down slowly. Then here's what you don't have, she said, and opened the folder. Sloan ran the query in January, authorized logged clean on its face. But she didn't run it out of curiosity, and she didn't run it because Brennan asked her to. Boyd slid a single page across. She ran it because a law firm requested a conflicts check. Outside counsel retained by a private client doing due diligence on a personnel matter. Daniel picked up the page. Which firm? Halstead and Nye. Sophia's head came up. That's our firm, she said. That's the firm that does our corporate work. That's the firm Victor put on retainer in... She stopped. In 2009, Boyd said. Yeah, I noticed that too. Monday, 10:15 p.m. Catherine Sloan's proffer took 4 hours, and by the end of it, she had stopped crying and started doing what she had been trained to do, which was talk in dates. He didn't ask me to find a man, she said. That's what nobody understands. He asked me for a background sweep on the car service vendors. Standard. Insurance-driven. 12 companies, 68 drivers. And you saw a name, Sophia said. I saw a hole. Sloan's voice was flat. I spent 9 years in the Southern District. I know what a witness file looks like from the outside. It looks like a man who was born at 29. And you told Victor. I told Victor there was an anomaly. And what did Victor say? Sloan looked at the table. He said that's interesting. Find out what kind. Monday, 6:40 p.m. Lily was at the kitchen table in Astoria with the script in front of her and a red pencil in her fist, underlining the words she was supposed to say louder. Daniel sat down across from her and said, I need to tell you something and I need you to let me finish. She put the pencil down. 7 years old, and she put the pencil down. Okay. A long time ago, before you can remember, I had a different job. And some men I worked with did something very bad, and I told the police about it, and because of that, the police helped us move and helped us change our last name, so those men couldn't find us. Lily was quiet. Is Hayes not our name? Hayes is our name, Daniel said. It's the name we've had your whole life, and it's the name on your library card, and it's yours. But before you, I was Daniel Cross. Cross. Yeah, she thought about it, which she always did. Am I in trouble? No, baby. Nobody's in trouble. But there might be some people who say things about me on the internet this week. And some kids' parents might read it, and kids repeat things. Like what? Like that your dad hurt people. Lily's face did something complicated. Did you? And Daniel Hayes, who had spent 5 years constructing a life on the principle that his daughter should never have to hold anything heavy, made the hardest decision of his adult life in about 2 seconds. Yes, he said. A long time ago. And I stopped, and I told the truth about it, and telling the truth cost us everything, and I'd do it again. Lily looked at him for a long moment. Then she picked her pencil back up. You're the narrator, she said. Tuesday, 8:02 a.m. Sophia stood in the lobby of her own building with 11 cameras on her and did not use a podium because Denise said a podium looks like a bunker. 9 days ago, I did not know that a member of my board had spent 2 years buying my head of security, she said. That's not a defense. That's an indictment, and it's mine. I built a company where nobody was allowed to bring me a problem twice, and a man who understood that used it for 11 years. A reporter shouted the question she'd been waiting for since 4 in the morning. Ms. Whitmore, is it true? Your driver is a protected federal witness. Denise had written her an answer. Sophia had memorized it in the car, and it was excellent, and it said absolutely nothing. She didn't use it. His name is Daniel Hayes, she said. He has driven me twice a day for 4 months. He told me 11 days ago that I was being followed, and I told him his job was to drive. I was wrong, and he was right, and on Friday night, he stood between me and 4 men in my own garage. She looked directly into the middle camera. He also stopped. When he had every reason not to, he stopped. I'd ask anybody planning to write about his past to spend the same amount of time on that sentence. Tuesday 11:35 a.m. The forensic accountant's name was Wendell Ocasio, and he was 67 years old and semi-retired, and Denise had gotten him out of a house in Montclair on a Sunday, and by Tuesday morning he had found something that made him ask for Sophia personally. Ms. Whitmore, I need to ask you an uncomfortable question. Everyone does this week? Your father's company, Whitmore Machine Products, Lorain, Ohio. Sophia's stomach dropped 4 inches. What about it? It was sold in a distressed transaction in 2009 to a holding entity called Marchbank Industrial. Ocasio turned his laptop around. Marchbank was capitalized by 4 investors through a Delaware layer. 3 of them are dead. The 4th is a trust. Mr. Ocasio, I have a company on fire. Yes, Ocasio said. I'm telling you where the match was. Tuesday 11:41 a.m. The trust, he said, is called the Reynolds Family, 2004 Irrevocable. The room went completely silent. That's not possible, Sophia said. Victor came in later. Victor came in 2013 when we were 4 engineers. Victor put $11 million into my company. Yes, Ocasio said quietly. He did. And I've traced 8.6 of it. To where? To the 2011 sale of Marchbank Industrial's Ohio assets. Sophia sat down. She did not decide to. Her body simply stopped holding her up, and there happened to be a chair. Say it in English. Your father lost his company to a buyer he never met, Ocasio said. 2 years later, that buyer stripped and sold it. And 4 years after that, a man walked into your office with the money and offered to be your partner. Tuesday 11:44 a.m. Daniel found her 20 minutes later, sitting on the floor of her own office, with her back against the desk and her shoes off. I didn't say anything. He sat down on the floor across from her, which took him a second, because his ribs were still wrong from Friday. My father said a name, she said. I remember. At the kitchen table in Lorain. He had a stack of papers, and he said, Sophie, I gave 1/3 of this to a man on a handshake, and I have known him since we were 19. Her voice was somewhere far away. And I said, Dad, who? And he said a name I'd never heard, and I told him he was confused because he was on a lot of medication by then, and because I was 23, and I knew everything. What was the name? I don't remember. She laughed, and it was terrible. That's the part. I have a photographic memory for numbers. I can tell you the 3rd line item on a term sheet from 2016. And I threw that name away, Daniel. I threw it away that same night because it was easier to believe my father was confused than to believe he'd been robbed and I hadn't noticed. Daniel let the silence sit for a while. He sat next to you at the funeral, he said finally. He gave the eulogy. He gave the eulogy for a man whose company he bought out from under him. Yes, Sophia. Daniel leaned his head back against the wall. You want me to tell you it's not your fault. I'm not going to because you'd stop trusting me. So here's the true one. You were 23 and your father was dying and you did what a 23-year-old does. And then you spent 11 years making sure it never happened to you again. He turned his head. And it happened anyway. Because he didn't come at you like a thief. He came at you like family. And there is no security system on earth that catches that. Not mine. Not anybody's. Sophia wiped her face with the back of her wrist once the way she had in the car. He held my hand in the receiving line for an hour and a half. I know. Why? Because he had to, Daniel said. Because if he'd let go, you'd have looked up. Wednesday, 9:15 a.m. They did not arrest Victor Reynolds on Wednesday, because that is not how it works. And Sophia learned that week that federal time is measured in a different currency entirely. What happened Wednesday was smaller and worse. Halstead and Nye withdrew as counsel to Whitmore Dynamics at 9:15 in the morning by a 2-paragraph letter, and by 9:40, a partner named Gilbert Nye had resigned from 3 boards, and by 11, the story had a second head, and it was not about a driver at all anymore. It was about a law firm. Denise read the letter twice and set it down and said, "Sophia, do you understand what just happened?" They ran. They ran in the direction of a fire exit they built in 2009. Denise's jaw was tight. That's not one man. That was a structure. Your father didn't lose his company to a bad partner. He lost it to a machine, and the machine has been sitting in your building for 11 years, billing you $400,000 a quarter. Wednesday, 2:50 p.m. Sophia saw Victor one more time, and it was not in a courtroom, and it was not dramatic, and that was what made it unbearable. I was on 68th Street outside his building with 2 suitcases and a doorman who would not look at him, and she had her driver stop and she got out. He saw her coming, and he didn't run, and he didn't posture. Sophia. Marchbank Industrial, she said, and Victor Reynolds closed his eyes. Ah, he said. That's it. Ah. What would you like me to say? I'd like you to say my father's name. He opened his eyes. He was 61 years old, and for the first time in her life, he looked it. Ray, he said. Raymond Whitmore. He was the best natural machinist I ever met, and the worst businessman, and he ran that company into a wall for 6 years and refused every single piece of advice I gave him. And when it went under, I bought it because if I hadn't, a strip and flip out of Chicago would have, and there would have been nothing left for anybody. You never told him. No. You bought his life, and you sat in his house at Christmas. I did. Why? Victor Reynolds looked past her up the street at nothing. Because I thought I'd give it back, he said. That was the actual plan. That's the part nobody's going to believe, and I don't care. I was going to put the money in your company, and one day when you were 40, and it was worth $10 billion, I was going to tell you at a dinner, and it was going to be a gift. He shrugged, and the shrug was the most honest thing she had ever seen him do. And then you got good. You got so good you didn't need me. And every year, my 11 million meant less. And every year, the day I could tell you got further away until it wasn't a gift anymore. It was just a thing I'd done. So you took it. So I took it back, Victor said. Yes. Sophia stood on a sidewalk on 68th Street. They're going to indict you. Probably. I'm going to help them. I know, he said. You should. And then he did the thing she had known was coming since the moment she got out of the car, because he had never once in 11 years let her leave a conversation without leaving something in her hand. He was proud of you, Sophie. That part was never a lie. Don't call me that. He was proud of you, and he told me so about 400 times, and it made me sick with envy every single time, and that's the truth, and you can do whatever you want with it. He got in the car. She let him go. Thursday, 4:12 p.m. Daniel's phone rang from a number in Georgia. He knew before he answered. Cole. Hey, Danny. Where are you? That's a hell of a question to open with. A soft laugh. A road noise behind it. I'm at a Waffle House. I've been at a lot of Waffle Houses. You people don't understand how many there are. Ellen Boyd has your face on a wire in 4 states. Yeah, I've been reading about you, Brennan said. You're famous. There's a picture of you in a gray jacket. You look old man. What do you want? I want to tell you something, and then I'm going to hang up, and I need you to shut up and let me get through it because I've been practicing on I-95 for 2 days. Daniel said nothing. That thing you said to me in the hallway. Brennan's voice had changed. All the salesman was gone out of it. About how I'd remember I said those 2 words in that house. Cute kid. That's it. That's all I said. I remember. Well, congratulations, because I have thought about it approximately 900 times since Friday, and I cannot get it out of my head. And I have been doing this for 31 years, and nobody has ever put a thing in my head that stuck. A pause. My daughter got married in a church I've never seen. I told you that. You did. I'm going to call Boyd tomorrow. Daniel closed his eyes. Cole. Don't get excited, it's not a conversion, it's arithmetic. Brennan sniffed. I'm 54, I've got maybe 9 grand and the alternative is Bolivia, and I don't speak Spanish and I'm not going to learn. A dry laugh. And because if I run, they hunt you for me. They put your face on television again, and your kid does that in a school district. Cole. I'm not doing you a favor. I know. Say something else. Daniel opened his eyes. I'll write to you, he said. There was a very long silence on a phone line from a parking lot in Georgia. Yeah, Cole Brennan said. Okay. Thursday, 6:31 p.m. The second-grade production of The Little Tree ran 22 minutes, and there were 41 folding chairs in the gymnasium of St. Bridget's, and Daniel Hayes sat in the 4th row on the aisle, which was the seat he always took for reasons he was going to have to think about eventually. Rosa Alvarez sat on his left with a video camera from 2011. Sophia Whitmore sat on his right in a coat that cost more than the sound system. You didn't have to come, he said. I know. You have a company on fire. Company's been on fire for 11 years, Sophia said. Nobody told me. I'm learning to sit down anyway. The lights went half down, and a 7-year-old in a paper crown walked to the middle of the floor with a single sheet of paper, and Rosa made a small sound and pressed her hand over her mouth. And Lily Hayes read the whole page. She read it slowly, and she got the word ordinary wrong the first time and fixed it herself, and she looked up at the 4th row exactly once in the middle and found her father and kept going. When she finished, 41 people clapped in a gymnasium in Queens, and Daniel Hayes put both hands over his face and did not take them away for a while. Sophia looked straight ahead the entire time and gave the man his privacy, which was, she thought afterward, possibly the first genuinely decent thing she had done in a decade. Thursday, 7:40 p.m. She's a natural, Sophia said in the hallway, holding a paper cup of terrible fruit punch. She's 7. She projected to the back wall. Do you know how many grown men in my company can't project to the back wall? Daniel almost smiled. Sophia. Yes. Why are you here? And she looked at this cup for a second, because he had asked the question she'd been avoiding since Tuesday. Because on Monday, I'm announcing a restructure, she said. And there's a position in it that doesn't exist yet, and I want you in it, and I know you're going to say no, so I wanted to ask you in a place where you'd have to be polite about it. That's manipulative. I've had a bad week. I'm reverting. Thursday, 7:44 p.m. What's the position? Director of Enterprise Risk, not Corporate Security. That's a different job, and Ramirez has it as of Monday, which he doesn't know yet. She turned the cup around in her hands. Yours reports directly to me and the audit committee, and it has one function, which is to walk into my office and tell me things I don't want to hear, and it cannot be fired by me. Only by the board, and only unanimously. Daniel stared at her. You wrote a job that you can't fire. I wrote a job that Victor Reynolds could not have bought, Sophia said. There's a difference, and it took Denise 9 hours, and it's the most important thing I've done in 4 years. Sophia. $240,000, full benefits, and the hours are yours, and if there's a school play, there's a school play, and I will personally throw anyone out of a window who has an opinion about it. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. No, he said. Thursday, 7:47 p.m. She had known it was coming, and it still landed like a hand on her chest. Okay, she said. You want to know why? You don't owe me why. You'd chew on it for 6 months. Yes, I would. Daniel set his cup on the windowsill. Because $240,000 is what a man gets paid to be useful, he said. And I spent 5 years learning that being useful is exactly how they get you. Wallace found me because I was useful. Brennan found me because I was useful. Victor Reynolds put me in your car because a man with a buried record and a daughter is the most useful thing in the world since you can turn him off with one phone call. He looked at her steadily. The day I'm on your payroll at that number, I'm useful again. And someday somebody smart figures out what I'm worth to somebody else. Sophia didn't argue. That was new for her, and she noticed it. Then what, she said. You go back to the car service in Queens. No, Daniel said. I open my own thing. Thursday, 7:49 p.m. Say more. 3 guys, maybe 5. Threat assessment and driver training for mid-market companies that can't afford a real security department and don't know they need one. He shrugged. Half your industry has a 40-year-old guy in facilities scheduling maintenance windows and calling it security. That's how you got hit. And Whitmore Dynamics would be a client. Whitmore Dynamics would be my first client, Daniel said. At a rate, with a contract, with a termination clause that runs both ways. He held her eyes. Because a vendor can walk out, Sophia. That's the whole point. An employee can only be fired. A vendor can leave. And I need to be a man who can leave, or none of the rest of it is real. Sophia Whitmore, who had spent her entire adult life on the other side of that exact sentence, stood in a school hallway in Queens and started laughing and could not stop for about 15 seconds. What? Daniel said. You just negotiated me. A little? No, you negotiated me. That was a real negotiation, and I lost it, and I didn't see it coming. She wiped her eye. God, do you know how long it's been? Friday, 9:10 a.m. Curtis Ward pled to 2 counts and cooperated fully and lost his career and did not lose his freedom, and Sophia called 9 people, and the 7th one hired him to run overnight logistics at a distribution center in New Jersey, and it paid less than half, and Ward took it without a word. His son went into a program in Pennsylvania on the 11th. Ward wrote Sophia 1 letter, and it was 4 lines, and the last line said, I don't expect you to read this twice. I hope you do. She read it 11 times. Monday, 8:00 a.m. Ramirez got the security director job at 26 years old and cried in the elevator, which he thought nobody saw and which 2 people saw. His first act was to walk every level of the garage with a flashlight and a clipboard and a laminated list. And his second act was to find a second aftermarket camera on level 4 that nobody had known about. And his third act was to walk into Sophia's office without an appointment and tell her about it. She let him. That was the change, and it was not a small one, and it cost her more than anything else that year. 6 weeks later, Cole Brennan pled guilty in the Eastern District of New York and got 9 years, and at the sentencing, his allocution ran 2 minutes and mentioned no one by name. Catherine Sloan surrendered her license, testified for 11 hours, and got 30 months. Victor Reynolds was indicted on 14 counts, and his lawyers filed motions that would take 3 years to resolve, and he moved to a house in Sarasota that belonged to his wife, and he never called Sophia again, not once, which she had not expected, and which turned out to be the loneliest part of the entire thing. The Marchbank filings became a case study at 2 business schools. 4 months later, Hayes Risk Group had a 1-room office over a dry cleaner in Long Island City. 4 employees, 11 clients, and a laminated sign on the door that Lily had insisted on, and that was slightly crooked. Daniel drove himself to work in the Corolla. He picked his daughter up at 3:05. Sophia Whitmore had dinner at his kitchen table roughly once a month, and Lily called her Sophia and beat her at gin rummy without mercy. And once in June, Sophia stayed until 11 and helped a 7-year-old build a volcano out of a 2-liter bottle and got baking soda on a $4,000 blazer and laughed so hard she had to sit on the floor. Neither of them named it. There was no reason to. It was already the truest thing in either of their lives, and both of them had spent long enough around lawyers to know that some things get weaker the second you write them down. 1 year later, she stood at a shareholders' meeting in front of 400 people and said the sentence that 100 consultants had begged her not to say. A year ago, a man who drove my car told me I was in danger, and I told him that wasn't his job. I want every person in this room to understand that the difference between this company existing today and not existing is that he ignored me. Then she looked at the 4th row on the aisle, where a man in a gray jacket sat with his hands loose at his sides, and a 7-year-old, now 8, sat next to him swinging her legs. Some of you have asked why I keep the risk function outside my control, Sophia said. This is why. Anybody in this company can be flattered. Anybody can be paid. Anybody can be loved into silence by a man who gave the eulogy at your father's funeral. The only protection that has ever worked in the entire history of human beings is one person in the room who is not afraid of you. She let that sit. I spent 11 years believing that strength meant standing alone, she said. I was wrong. Standing alone is not strength. It's just the last thing you do before somebody takes everything you have. Nobody in the world is harmless, and nobody in the world is only what their job title says. The quiet man at the wheel had carried more weight, made harder choices, and paid a steeper price than anyone she'd ever met in a boardroom, and she had looked straight past him for 4 months because his shoes were cheap. She never made that mistake again, and neither should you. Look at the people standing quietly beside you. One of them is holding a door shut that you never even knew was there.